Alrighty, so it's time to do another News of the Week episode as it is Wednesday, and that as it is the case for the past couple of weeks with the secondary transfer window being open in MLS, there has been some signings and rumors that has happened around the league, and this week is no different from that. But the first signings that we're going to talk about is something that we kind of knew it was going to happen, and that of course is Toronto FC signing Italian international Federico Bernardeschi as a designated player. In fact, this is kind of a bit of an old news because it was announced, I believe, last Thursday or Friday that this, of course, is official. But as I said, we knew this was going to happen because I think in the last News of the Week episode, I talked about how close this deal is being done and that it is pretty much official a couple of days after I done that News of the Week episode. So yeah, overall, I think this is a great signing for TFC, and especially the fact that people don't know that Bernardeschi, he's only 28 years old. Like, he is still at the prime of his career, and that, now the fact that TFC have the likes of Insigne and Bernardeschi in the attack, all of a sudden, this attack might be one of the scariest attack in the league. And I know in the past I talk about about TFC and in terms of their defensive problem, and that I think overall that is still going to be a big issue and maybe would be the big reason why they could not make it to the playoffs. But you have guys like Bernardeschi and Insigne on the same team, and these are considered two of the most well, at least in Insigne cases, one of the most well-known player, but also both of these players that could be almost building that same partnership that we saw when Javinko and Josie Altidore was with TFC. Yeah, I think there could be a case that Toronto FC could get themselves back into the glory that they were a couple years ago, being the cream of the top in the Eastern Conference. But like I said, as I mentioned many times with this team, as good as they have got these signings, and they do have a decent attack, what about the defense? Is the defense going to be enough in terms of carrying them into the playoffs? And as of now, unfortunately, I just have to say no, because when you look at that back line, again, the fact that they still haven't really addressed it, and the only player that they added in hope to stability that back line is Domenico Kustesh. So I don't know if that's going to be enough, even with the addition of Bernardeschi and Insigne going forward, where I think this is going to be similar to, I feel like the way that Bob Bradley built this team is going to be similar to what he did with LAFC, where he's going to focus heavily on the attack, but on the defensive department, yeah, let's just pray that, of course, will work out, and that while those LAFC team did, of course, make it to the playoffs years and years out, I feel like when you look at this TFC team, and in terms of the defense and also the goalkeeping situation, it's probably even worse than what we've seen with the Bob Bradley LAFC team. But they could prove me wrong. They could have an incredible ball run in the second half of the season to get themselves back into the playoff race, which in some way they have to, because they're still near the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and they still have a lot of points to make up if they want to get themselves back into the playoff conversation. Now, moving on to our next news is that Nashville SC have acquired U.S. men's national team fullback Shaq from CD Tenerife. Now, this has been a move that, believe it or not, this was a signing that looked like it was going to happen during the winter transfer window, or the primary transfer window in MLS, and then the deal, of course, was off, but there was a rumor that it could happen in the summer. Well, little did we know that rumor turns out to be true, because indeed Nashville has got their man, and that you would say that they probably have now find the Alistair Johnston replacement. I mean, this is nothing against Eric Miller, but I think there's no doubt that they desperately need a replacement for Alistair Johnston. And speaking of Eric Miller, I think he's been doing okay in terms of replacing Alistair Johnston in that spot. But they desperately need a player like Shaq that can step in that same role that Johnston filled, and still don't lose a lot of quality. And I think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to slot in there very well and really help stabilize what has already been a very, very decent backline for this Nashville team, but also can be looked threatened on the attack. Because I remember when Shaq was with the U.S. men's national team during those Gold Cup and Nations League run, he was definitely threatened, and not only on the defensive part, but also on the attacking part too. So yeah, I think this is a good signing for Nashville to finally getting a guy that they were hoping to get him into the winter, but at least, as the old saying go, it's better late than never in terms of getting a player that you've been wanted to get ever since the off season of a couple of months ago. Now, speaking of fullbacks, DC United have traded Julian Gressel to the Vancouver Whitecaps in exchange for up to 900,000 general allocation money. Now, as much as that is a lot of money, that still it is less than when DC, of course, acquired Julian Gressel from Atlanta United. I mean, I still cannot believe DC only paid like something like only like 400 or 600,000 K to get Julian Gressel, when Gressel was considered one of the best player in the league and probably the best versatile player in the league. And while DC, in some way they tried to use that. I mean, Julian Gressel have repeatedly said that he actually does have a position that he plays in, which is in that right back row, and that the fact that DC's kind of maybe mismanaged in terms of how they want Julian Gressel play is not a big surprise why he hasn't really been as good as what he was doing the time with Atlanta United. But that being said, it doesn't stop for some teams that decide to pay big bucks for him, and that maybe you just need to move on to a new system. And that we've seen before where players, when they do well with a club, if it usually means that they play not only do well with a club, but the system works for them. But when they do move on to another club where the system doesn't work for them, then yeah, they don't look as good as their former club. And I feel like that might be the case for Julian Gressel, where he just doesn't fit in the DC United system. And we'll see whether or not if that's going to be the case once he now go to the Whitecaps and fit the Vanni Sartini system that the Whitecaps has had. Now, one thing that I also want to mention about this deal that is kind of not being talked about a lot, but probably should be talked about, is Julian Gressel not happy with the fact that how this DC front office basically disrespected him with the way that they kind of didn't really inform him well that he was getting traded to the Vancouver Whitecaps. Like, I've heard reports saying that the front office basically just told him, like, well, they kind of had like a meeting. So when a player is going to be traded, they usually kind of have a meeting, and then there's kind of rumors that of course is the case, and eventually there may be like a follow-up meeting where the player is traded. Well, that wasn't the case in this case. I mean, the front office basically just told that, yep, you're out of here. You're basically going to Vancouver. We don't want you anymore. And there's no doubt that Julian Gressel was not happy with how the situation was handled, and I think he was rightfully so feel disrespected, because anytime when a club just tell you that, yep, you're basically traded without even telling you that, well, we've been shopping around for you, but we'll get back to it. Yeah, that feels like a dirty move that is made by this DC front office, and this DC front office has been heavily criticized because of that, and especially it's not the first time we've seen that this front office has really botched how they transfer a player. Remember when Lucho Acosta was going to go to PSG and how they botched that situation? And I'm not quite sure if I remember how they botched it, but it was for like a spectacular reason, and how Lucho Acosta was very upset about that, and eventually they did sell him off to Atlas, but yeah, they didn't give as much money as they did when they sent him to Atlas as they would have done if they would have sent him to PSG. So again, it's not the first time that we see this DC front office have botched in terms of either sending players to other club without acknowledging them in beforehand. And again, I think every DC fans have the rights to be very upset. Like, they're already upset about the front office of how they botched the coaching search from previous year, and and also some of the signings that has made to hope to improve this team. But this is just another slap in what has already been a very negative reputation that this DC front office, and the mistrust between the front office and also the fan base right now that this team has. Now, another thing that DC also did this week is signing a player. So while they did let go of one of their most well-known and also one of the most well-loved player, because I'm pretty sure Gressel was very well-loved in the DC fan base. They have acquired Miguel Berry from Columbus in exchange for up to $325,000 general allocation money. Now, remember Miguel Berry last year of a breakout year that he has with Columbus, and that we thought that he might be the Jersey Zardes replacement for the Crew. Yeah, safe to say that hasn't worked out, and that I feel like Barry has kind of suffered a sophomore slump in his second season in MLS, having lived up to the expectation of what we thought that he was a decent player. But as the case I've always said about number 9, sometimes they need a change of scenery, and let's see if the change of scenery that he go with DC is going to be well. But at the same time, I'm also kind of surprised the fact that DC decided to go for another number 9, because don't they just have Taxi Funtas already and Ola Kamara in that number 9 spot? And it's kind of weird the fact that a couple of years ago I went from talking about how DC having problems with signing number 9 to now them signing way too much number 9. And that, again, I don't know, do they necessarily need to get Miguel Berry? And that that Miguel Berry wants to have some game time, because ever since he lost his starting position with the Columbus Crew, and that it's not going to help his cause if he decide to go to DC when basically the guy that is in that number 9 role, and that they just recently signed a number 9 in Taxi Funtas, and didn't they also have a number 9 in Michael Estrada alongside with Ola Kamara? Like, they have 4 strikers on that team. I mean, again, that's way too much for a team, even if you want to add some depth in terms of that 4 group. So this is kind of an odd one to do, but I guess maybe this is just one that they want to add some more depth, and that, again, I'm not sure if DC fans are that happy, especially $325,000 for Miguel Berry. I feel like that's kind of a bit of a steep price, even though he had a breakout year last year. I mean, when a guy that hasn't scored a lot of goals, that's still I would say maybe around 150 would have been the range instead of 325K that they of course have to pay Columbus in order to get Miguel Berry. Now, Orlando City have signed U.S. men's national team forward Nicholas, and I think it's Giannini from Cannes. Now, this I think is a decent signing for Orlando City. Not only the fact that he's still a relatively young player, and even though don't let this distract you the fact that he hasn't really appeared for the U.S. men's national team a lot. I think that he's only have like 1 appearance for the national team, and it feels like his development has really kind of got harm of him being with Khan, and that he just haven't got a lot of playing time with him. Now, whether or not if he is going to get playing times with Orlando City, time will tell, because Orlando City, they already have their starting number 9 in Arcankara there, and that most likely Giannini will be used as a backup. But I think this is also a smart move for Orlando City, knowing the fact that most likely Alexandre Pato is going to be moving on this season, and besides having guys like Benji Michel, who I think he might also move on this season, and the same goes with Teshin Akindele. They need a number 9 in terms of the depth position, and I think Giannini will step into that role, and he also maybe get some game time to prove that he can be getting to a level of where the U.S. men's national team actually called him up once, but he actually never really. I think even with the time when he got called once, and even though I said he has 1 appearance, I don't know if he actually played in that 1 appearance. I might be wrong, but overall, I think this is kind of a low risk and high reward kind of signing, and I think it's a decent signing that Orlando City, of course, got. Now, Orlando City also have made a move in terms of sending one of their players to another team, and that player is Sebastian Mendes, who is going to be going to LAFC, and they will receive up to $300,000 general allocation money. And Sebastian Mendes used to be a regular starter for this Orlando City team, but as Orlando City have got stronger, especially in the midfield, he has really dropped down the pecking orders, and it just gets to a point where, when you have guys that are like 3rd string or 4th string kind of player, and you need to make some move in terms of getting rid of some of the player that you don't play regularly, so you can maybe add in some more depth or add in another player, then yeah, you have to kind of move on to those 3rd string and 4th string player. And in other words, this is kind of a roster dump move that Orlando City is having, but at least they get a good amount of general allocation money for that. $300K is definitely decent, and for Sebastian Mendes, I think he'll be happy too, because he's gonna go to a team that could be a cup contender. Like, even though I know he probably won't get a lot of minutes because LAFC, I feel like this is kind of a move that they made just to beef up what already is a very deep midfield that they had. But hey, at least you get to go to a cup contender team, and I think when a player decided to move on to another team, even if they don't get minutes, if you get to be on a cup contender team, then you absolutely would take it. I mean, it's not like, again, he has been getting a lot of playing time for Orlando City, and I feel like if there's a chance where he can potentially win some trophies, LAFC is definitely that team compared to Orlando City. And this is not to disrespect Orlando City, but let's face it, we know LAFC is most likely going to be winning a trophy compared to Orlando City this season. Now, the Philadelphia Union has transferred Stuart Findlay to League One club Oxford United. And speaking of depth pieces, Stuart Findlay has been a good depth piece for the Philadelphia Union, which is kind of maybe a little surprised that they decided to move on from him this soon. But I guess Stuart Findlay wants to go back to Europe and go back to England to play in this. Though he has been spending times playing with Celtic FC before moving to the Union, and it's kind of also interesting to see he decide to make this move to a League One club where League One compared to MLS, I think League One is just a little bit below that, and that some would say that this may be it is a move that might be, you might be going to a team that is a little bit lower than if he would have stayed with the Union. But I guess maybe he just decided that he wanted to be closer to home, and that is why this signing might have completed. And also the Union could get some cash out that deal too, because we know that the Union, they are a team that is well known in terms of developing good players and eventually sell them off to overseas. And although they didn't really develop Stuart Findlay, and he's more like a depth piece for them, they at least might still get some cash out of it. Though again, I think Union fans will definitely miss Stuart Findlay, because from what I heard is he seems to be a very nice guy and seems to kind of be one of the fan favorites with the team. Now, speaking of midfielders that is moving on to another team or moving overseas, we got LAFC decide to loan midfielder Francesco Pancho Ginella back to CD Nacional. And Ginella time with LAFC has been kind of underwhelming. I mean, when they decided to get him a couple of years ago, they thought that he was going to be a guy that they can develop and eventually sell them off overseas, and unfortunately that has just not been the case. In fact, he's been kind of dropping down the pecking order in terms of the depth chart, and I think he's probably been asking that you maybe need to go on loan or go to another club if he wants to get some more playing time. And him going back to his native country in Uruguay and joining CD Nacional might be the time to get those playing time. And hey, I said before, with a lot of these players that come from South America and it hasn't worked out, sometimes you need to go back down to there to maybe get some more game time. And that once you of course get back to the team that currently has the contract rights for you can maybe get yourself back into the starting conversation, and we'll see whether or not if that's going to be the case for Ginella going back to Uruguay and going to CD Nacional on loan. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now talk about some of the transfer news that has happened. Well, obviously the biggest transfer coming out of this week, and we've been talking about this for the past couple of months, but it feels like maybe the Tati Castellanos transfer saga is about to come to an end, because there's numerous reports suggesting that it looks like he's going to be playing his last NYCFC game against Inter Miami this weekend, and then he's going to be joining La Liga side Girona. Now, obviously, nothing has been made official, and it seems like the transfer fee is going to be upward about $15 million or so, but from what we have seen, it seems like maybe that this could be the last time we're going to be seeing Tati Castellanos playing in an NYCF jersey. And we knew this was going to happen, because we knew that if he wasn't going to be so during the winter transfer window, the summer transfer window is going to be the case to do so. Though the club that he's joining, Girona, I mean, no disrespect to Girona, but yeah, I would have assumed he would have joined a much more well-known club in La Liga. I mean, I'm not expecting him joining like Real Madrid or Barcelona, but I would have expect him to maybe join some other well-known club like Sevilla or Atletico Madrid, and especially Atletico Madrid with the way that Luis Suarez has been rumored to come to MLS, and that would have been a perfect replacement, getting Tati Castellanos in that side. But Girona is kind of a bit of an underwhelming side, though. Again, I think transfer fees says a lot in terms of why NYCFC decided to sell him to a lesser known club in La Liga. And if Girona actually decided to pay like $20 million, then it's kind of hard to pass up if you're NYCFC, especially. You knew that they were going to cash in on Tati Castellanos, and that yeah, we'll see whether if this of course will be the case, because again, it's from what I heard is that it is very close to being final. But until it is final, then yeah, we can officially say that yeah, Tati Castellanos is going to be moving on. And there's no doubt I'll probably even do a Tati Castellanos video, talk about his career and doing his short time with NYCFC, because this is a guy that a couple years ago it felt like he was going to be a disappointment for NYCFC, and ever since they decided to put him in that number 9 spot, man, he has become not only the hair of David Villa, but a guy that is considered the most lethal number 9 right now in the league. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, we got the Portland Timbers in talk with a Colombian youth international right back, Juan David Mosquera from Independent Medellin. Now, this was actually a rumor that is relatively old, because this actually was a rumor that happened right after when I finished doing my News of the Week episode. But it's also worth to note it, because, again, the Timbers maybe need some reinforcement at the back line, and especially in the fullback position. And if they do decide to get him, I think that's the reinforcement that they're looking for, even though I don't really know a lot about this kid, and other than the fact that he's only 19-year-old, and that most likely if he does join the Timbers, it's going to be for depth reason rather for him to be a regular starter. So yeah, we'll see whether if this move is going to complete. But now moving on, in terms of the next news, and a move that it seems like it's getting very close to being complete. In fact, there's even some reports saying that this deal is done, is that DC United is reported to sign ex-Derby County midfielder Ravel Morrison. Now, when this first was rumored, there was talk that this was going to be a DP signing, which I think if that was the case, DC fans would have just lost their mind. Like that, and this is nothing against Ravel Morrison, but the numbers that he has with Derby County is not worthy of a designated player kind of tag. But later on, it seems like it's just going to be a TAM player. And like I said, it seems like this deal is all but done. And that it's also not surprised the fact that he's coming to DC, because, you knew that Wayne Rooney is going to at least sign one of his former player that he coached when he was with Derby County. And Ravel Morrison was one of those players that played under Wayne Rooney during his time with Derby County. And we'll see whether if he's going to do well, because again, the numbers that he had with Derby isn't really that's good. But we've seen before where a player might not do well in the championship level, but as soon as they come to MLS, they turn out to be a bona fide start, and we'll see whether if that is going to be the case here. Now, Minnesota United has their $5 million bid for Bordeaux striker Juan Ujo rejected, with source saying that the asking price could be around $8 million. And, this is not a big surprise, because Bordeaux, I think from what I also heard, that they rejected a $7 million bid from Nantes to get their starting striker. And this is also interesting in the case where, as much as I would like to see the Loons get another DP striker to accompany with Luis Almeria, do they really necessarily need to do? I mean, I know the last time they signed a league player, it didn't turn out very, very well, and they immediately sold him back a year later in Adrian Hunou. And while Juan Ujo is going to be a player that I think has much more upside compared to Adrian Hunou, and especially he's actually the starting number 9 alongside with Sung Hyun-min with the South Korean national team. It's interesting to see whether if the Loons are going to break the bank to do so, because if they are going to try to match the asking price that Bordeaux basically is asking for teams to able to get their started striker, it would be the most expensive signing that Minnesota United has ever made, even much more than when they did with Reynoso, which I think Reynoso was like $5.5 million, and even then that was a Ricker and a move that, like I remember when the Loons got Reynoso, I know that he was going to be a decent player for this team, but he in my wildest imagination, I didn't think that he was going to be this good, and how important that he is with this team. And we'll see whether, if they do decide to get another player and record amount of that to get him, whether or not he's going to do so, because from what the numbers that he has been doing with Bordeaux and Ligue 1, especially against a struggling Bordeaux side that is facing a lot of financial situation, that's actually really, really good. And that maybe the Loons might need another striker to accompany with Luis Amarilla in that spot. But we'll see whether if they will do so. And then finally, the last news of this news of the week comes from Atlanta, as Atlanta United president Darren Eales will be stepping down as the president of Atlanta United, and he is actually going to be departing to go to Newcastle United and become the new CEO with the team. Now, as much as Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra, two of the most well-known names in the Atlanta United front office, has really kind of run this team to the ground these last couple of years, I think you still have to give them a lot of credit of what they did to this team, especially of how they made this team to be a team that, coming into the league with not a lot of expectation, but also getting some of these South American kind of players, and that they kind of also are kind of pioneers in terms of the MLS 3.0 movement, where I feel like when you look at some of the signings that has made and what makes this league what it is now in 2022, I think Atlanta United and Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra are the pioneer of that, because a lot of people didn't know that this of course would work out, where they tried the formula of going to South America, getting these hidden gem kind of young player, and then moved them to Atlanta United, develop them before selling off of a profit is going to work out, and it turns out it worked out big time, and it worked out so good that pretty much every single team are trying to replicate that formula. But like I said, despite the fact that he has bought in a winner in Atlanta United of them winning MLS Cup, you could say that his time with Atlanta United, especially with the heat that he's been facing lately, I feel like maybe this is the right time to kind of stepping down, because he's also the guy that based alongside with Bocanegra kind of tear down the core of this Atlanta United team. And that, I think if there was one weakness in terms of what they were trying to do and the philosophy that they were going to do, is that, when they do decided to sell on some of their best players, like Miguel Almiron, for example, you need to have a good replacement. And sometimes when you find these hidden gems in South America and these talented young players, they don't always come to MLS and develop to be a decent player. And so far, it feels like besides Miguel Almiron, that's been the case, because guys like Pity Martinez, who else? There was another player that I was thinking that comes to Atlanta. Oh, Ezequiel Barco. Yeah, that's the player that I'm thinking of, that comes to Atlanta basically with a hefty amount of money and never live up to expectation. And I know this might be still early to say, but you can maybe say the same thing with Thiago Almada too, where he's also been kind of underwhelming despite Atlanta pay a record amount of fees in terms of MLS to trying to get him. So again, while his project and the philosophy that he gives to Atlanta has been successful in the first couple of years, developed this team to be a winning culture of a team. Yeah, these last couple of years it just haven't worked out, and you knew that maybe this is the time to kind of step away and move on to another project that is Newcastle United, and a project that should be exciting, because Newcastle United, there's been a lot of talk of them maybe becoming the next Man City in the Premier League, with the backings of Saudi Arabia and the money that's going to be flowing through that team. Yeah, it's kind of maybe the reason why maybe Darren Eales decided that, yeah, I'm going to join that project rather than just kind of jump away from what seems like a burning ship right now that Atlanta United is going through. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news I've mentioned here on the board, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.